Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to have everybody here. I would like to welcome everybody here. It's a really special moment for us. We are at the end of the line of our course. We are in our last month of the course, and we have our second cultural activity. And I would like to congratulate all the students for getting until here. And we'll have a special moment with two very good people who will share their experience with us. Before we start, I would like to remember that we have an attendance list that will go through the chat during the middle of the presentation. Okay, so you have to sign the attendance list today. Don't forget, it will close after our presentation, okay? And don't forget that we are not finished. We still have 2 more weeks of studies, and then we have our final tests and anything else that is missing, okay? So if you missing to send documentation, if you miss some tests, this is our last month, our last chance, okay? So now we are going to start our presentation. We are going to talk about teaching Portuguese in the US. I will have here two very good friends of mine, Giovanna and Carol, and we will start with Giovanna Perini Loureiro, and she will give a presentation. Okay? Let's go, Giovanna.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Felipe, for inviting me to be here today. It's a pleasure. I hope you all like it, and feel free to send in any questions by the end of the presentation.
Thank you for taking our time, okay, to be here with us. And as Giovanna said, you can ask questions in the chat and we will go over them later, okay? The room is yours, Giovanna.
Thank you, Felipe. Okay, can you go to the next slide? So first of all, guys, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Giovanna, of course. I'm from Goiás, Brazil, originally, but I've been living in Belo Horizonte since I was, I don't know, 6. And that's why I'm a huge Galo fan, and you'll hear that a lot in this presentation, so be patient. I graduated in English teaching at Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais, and after graduating, I did research in linguistics. So I took my master's and my PhD in the area of linguistics. In my PhD, I studied apologies in social media. So, how do celebrities apologize on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook? But the most important thing you need to know about me is that I love being a teacher. And I've been teaching for more than 10 years so far. And that's why I decided to have this experience in the United States. So, as an English teacher, I really wanted to live abroad and to experience the life in another country, especially in an English speaking country. But I really did not want to do research. I did not want to study abroad. I wanted to do what I love. So I wanted to teach. And I saw the FLTA, the program by Fulbright, as an opportunity to teach my language, my native language, Portuguese. I had zero experience with teaching Portuguese before going to the United States. So it was a new experience and a learning experience for me. Okay, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So after I decided to apply for this program, we received a list of universities and we ranked them from which we're most interested in and least interested in. And I ranked Emory University as number 1 for many, many reasons. The first one is that the Portuguese program at Emory has classes that go from the introductory level to the advanced level. So the students start in the 100 language levels, that's basic language levels, and they go through the 300 language levels. So they talk about culture, they talk about cinema, history in the 300 levels. Besides the classes and the language classroom, Emory has a lot of events. So they have, as you can see in the photo, bate-papos every Friday. So we have the opportunity of eating pizza, talking in Portuguese, and presenting about the most varied topics we want to talk about. We also have karaoke nights, singing in Portuguese, and we also have things like field trips to eat feijoada, and etc. Emory has a large number of students that want to learn Portuguese. This is not very common in the United States. Portuguese is not a very popular language, as you know, so it's rare to have a university with hundreds and hundreds of students learning the language, as it happens at Emory. Another opportunity that Emory had was being a primary teacher. So many FLTA positions in other universities, you don't have your class. You're only assistant to other teachers, to other professors. And at Emory, I had this possibility of being a primary teacher. And finally, Emory is located in a big city. So Emory is a university, a private university in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. And I like the opportunity of being able to do different things and go out at night, have fun, travel a little bit. And if you're located in a very small city, this can be really difficult in the US. All right, can we go to the next? So what did I do as a foreign language teaching assistant for Fulbright in the United States? What was my role in the university? So in the first semester, fall 2021, I TA'd for the 110 class. So that means I was a teaching assistant. I only observed the classes that the professor gave, and I graded all the work. So I corrected every activity the students did. In the second semester, the spring of 2022, I had the opportunity of teaching the same class, but this time I was a primary teacher. So I prepared all the classes, I graded all the material, and I taught all the classes as well by myself. The 110 class is Portuguese for students that speak Spanish, Italian, or French. So it's a very fast class because they know a little bit of other Romance languages. They're able to understand Portuguese really, really fast. Another task I needed to do was holding office hours for students. So 3 hours a week, I needed to be available for students if they had any questions, if they needed help in anything with Portuguese language or with tests, exams, assignments, etc. And finally, I also organized and attended all the events hosted by the department, by the Portuguese department. So in the pictures, you can see me presenting a very special bate-papo about Galo. So every student at Emory University now knows that Galo is the best team in Brazil, of course. Another picture, you see me and Robledo. Robledo was also an FLTA at Emory. He was working with me. The only difference is that I was teaching the 110 class and Robledo was teaching the 101 class, which means he taught students that don't speak Spanish, the students that only speak English. So it was a little slower for his class. And the last picture is Robledo presenting his event about poetry. It was really interesting too. All right, next slide. Besides teaching and working in the United States, I was there for 9 months. So I think it's really interesting to talk about things I did in my free time, right? So as you know, I really like sports. I really like soccer in Brazil. So I had the opportunity of watching an NBA game, a soccer game in the United States. These were really fun. Going to a pumpkin patch, choosing my own pumpkin to cook a pumpkin pie, and do random things like glass blowing or going to try different foods with my friends. So I did work a lot, but I had time to do a bunch of other things that made the experience much more interesting and much more fun in the end. All right, next one. And finally, I also got to travel. Maybe you're interested in the American life and in the US in general. So we had some holidays and some vacations. So I got to travel a little bit. I went to Colorado and Denver in Colorado, I'm sorry. I went to Tennessee, Nashville, and Chattanooga. I visited LA, and I went to a little city in Florida to experience a small town in the south of the US. And I also went to New York City, of course, the big one. Besides that, I tried to go to different parks and have different, just going to different places and seeing different things, because I think going abroad is much more than just working, but also trying out things we don't get to try in Brazil. So, guys, that's it for today. Thank you very much for the attention. I hope you have many questions that I can help you if you didn't understand anything. Thank you, Felipe.
Thank you, Giovanna. There were some disagreements in the Gallo area
I
in the
saw that.
chat.
It's because they are not my students. That's why.
But thank you. We will have some more questions later. And now I will introduce you to Carol, our other guest for the day. And she will talk about her experience also as an FLTA in this past term. Okay, so thank you, Carol, for taking your time to be here with us. And it's a pleasure to be with you again online. And you have the room.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the invite again. And if I say anything that you guys don't understand, just let me know and I can explain it very easily without a problem to each one of you. So, I was at Yale University with my colleague Marilia. She's the other person in the picture you can see. And that was our supervisor, Professor David. I was an FLTA at this university for 2 years. 1 year was online and 1 year was in person. Could you please go to the next slide? Thank you. So I divided it in 4 small parts. So the first one, talking a little bit about me. The second one, talking a little bit about the university. Finally, about my experience and just general talking about how was this whole experience. Can you go to the next one, please? Thank you. So, yes, my name is Caroline. I'm from Curitiba, Paraná. And when I first decided to take the vestibular, I wanted to do mechanical engineering. And I wanted to go to ITA because I really liked airplanes, but I was too short. I was so short that I couldn't do anything there. So I just gave up and said, I'm going to study languages because that was something I really liked. And in the end, I ended up really liking it. And I started working with Portuguese for speakers of other languages in university. I fell in love with it and continued working with Portuguese since then. That's a picture of me in New York in a place that is named Caroline's. Yeah, can you go to next one, please? So this is a little bit about my work with Portuguese. So I started university in 2014. And since that year, I started working with Portuguese for speakers of other languages as a volunteer in my university. And thanks to that volunteer program, I was selected to go to Colombia, work at a university for a year, teaching Portuguese as well. And it was my first time doing a lot of things. It was my first time leaving the country. It was my first time taking a plane. It was my first time living alone. It was my first time learning Spanish. And it was my first time eating avocado as salad and not exactly dessert. If you go to Colombia and you say, yes, I eat avocado with sugar, they will look at you as if you're from another planet, because that's not something they're very used to. So going back, I finished my university and I started taking a scholarship to work in that program. I was a volunteer. Once I ended my university, my undergrad, I applied to the Fulbright program and I got it. And as I was selected, the pandemic hit, and then I got the chance to work online for a year as a teaching assistant, as a TA, as Giovanna was telling us earlier. So I was mainly helping the teachers doing cultural events and also during tutoring sessions with students. During our cultural events, we were trying to work with many different subjects. So a few of our events were about the healthcare system in Brazil. So we talked about SUS for a bit. We also talked about childhood plays in Brazil, children's plays. So we had a workshop where we made a pipa and some other things with our students, a kite. And we also had many other events that approached different things in Brazil. So we had queer music events, and we had also some events that were focused on African Brazilian culture as well. So we were trying to work with that as much as we could during this online period, and it was very interesting. And now, this last year, I had the chance to come to the US and work as a primary teacher. So, for the 2 semesters, fall semester and spring semester, I was a full time teacher, sort of. I had classes that went from Monday until Friday. So, we had classes every day. And I taught the 2 first elementary courses. So, I taught Portuguese 110 and Portuguese 120. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So a little bit about the university before we talk more about the Portuguese program itself. Yale University is in Connecticut, and it is one of the oldest universities here in the United States. And it's also a university that, when it appeared in my list of universities, was one of the ones I could recognize the name better. So I also chose it as my first option, and I'm very glad that I came here. We had a lot of work to do, but it was also very rewarding because the setting here is very pretty. All the buildings, they're very pretty, as you can see. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yes, so every building that you see has this very neo-Gothic architecture. So even when it's very cold or very hot, it always seems as if you're in a magical place. So we have a lot of residential colleges in the university, and these are something like dorms where students live for 1 year and then they have to move out and move in again. They have to live in these dorms for 2 years of their 4-year university time. The second picture is about the School of Law. So it's where some people have classes. And the third picture is from a library, which is one of the biggest libraries here, and they have a lot of books. It's a very, very huge library, and it's very pretty inside as well. Can you go to the next one, please? Thank you. And there are some funny things about the university that I don't really, I never thought about it, but apparently that's the truth because they say it a lot in here. So they were the ones that first invented university mascots. So it was Handsome Dan, which was a bulldog that really hated tigers and one specific color. And that information is important because that is the mascot for Harvard University. And Yale University and Harvard University are kind of enemies in a way. So the fact that the dog didn't like the mascot for Harvard University was very special for them. And since the very first Handsome Dan, there have been other 19 Handsome Dans so far, and they are always present in university games and many other events that the university has. They also say that they invited the frisbee. So there is a pie shop nearby that had metal tins, which are these metal things you can see there. And apparently people would eat those and start throwing them around. And that's how frisbee was invented at this very specific university, which it's something that they're very proud of because they say a lot. Could you go to the next one, please? So going back to the Portuguese program, we have 5 levels here, and in each one of the levels, we approach different things about Portuguese language. So in the first level, we talk about who are you in the city. And in that sense, we talk about how is your relationship within many different aspects that revolve the city. We talk a lot about New Haven, which is the city of Connecticut. And we talk about who is the city in you, for example. We talk about what is your city of the future and a lot of these relationships as we go through the course. The second level talks about places of memory. So throughout different moments in the course, we talk about memory. We talk about memory related to family, memory related to food, memory related to spaces, and also memory related to childhood. In the third and fourth level, we talk about Portuguese through the arts. The third level has a focus on body language. So we talk about dances, we talk about music, we talk about other expressions that use the body. And in the fourth level, we talk more about things that are visual. So pictures, movies, works of art, and other things that are related to this sense. And at the last level, we talk about Portuguese through Black lives. And in that sense, we work with a lot of poetry. We work with a lot of authors and thinkers from Brazil, and also about perspectives. So it's a very interesting course that has been very nice to follow and understand how it works. And our students, from the very first level, they learn how to work and talk about these subjects as well as they go through the course. So it's very interesting to see how they engage with what we teach them. Could you go to the next slide, please? And finally, a little bit about my experience. So although I am from Curitiba, that I'm sure everyone knows it's the coldest capital in Brazil. And if you don't agree, maybe you have never been to Curitiba, but that's how people from there believe it is. And I had never experienced something like snow before. And in here, when it's very, very cold, it's minus 22 degrees. So it's very, very cold. And there's like this much snow on the floor. And yeah, it was a very interesting experience for the first 2 weeks. And then I was very tired of it for the next 3 months. But I'm sure it was really interesting to experience everything and to use a lot of heavy codes. Can you go to the next slide, please? And finally, I also had the opportunity of traveling a little bit around the US. So the very first picture is from Philadelphia. The second picture is from Massachusetts, where I went skiing for the first time as well. The third picture is in Miami, Miami Beach, which is very hot and very sunny. It was very nice to be there. The fourth picture is from Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. And the last picture is from a pirate ship in Connecticut in a city called Mystic. Yes, the United States are very cold, especially in the Northeast, such as Connecticut. But yeah, I think it was a very interesting experience to me to know so many different places here and also so many different things that I believe are different from Giovanna's experience, because she said she was in a very big city, but as for me, I was in a mid-sized city, and a city called something like College Town. So all the city kind of organizes itself surrounding the university. So there are university students everywhere, and there were a lot of things too that are created in order for those students to have fun. So I also had a lot of fun here, and I also had a lot of places to go. It wasn't that small. So yes, and I keep saying here because I am still in the United States. I'll be leaving in a bit, but yeah, please let me know if you have any questions about any of the things I said or things I did not say. And that's it. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Carol. Pessoal, rapidinho aqui, só para falar sobre a attendance list. O link já está no chat, vocês precisam preencher, ok? O link que está lá no chat, ok? Carol, we have a question here for you. When do they replace the dog? I mean, I think it's like, does it have to die, or it just get old and and they choose another one? Do you know how it is?
Yes, so there is a tradition that one student always has to own the dog. So the dog is always an animal that is owned by a student. So sometimes the dog is replaced once the student graduates. Sometimes the dog continues in the university and someone starts taking care of them. So I think usually it depends on the age of the animal. Not that they die every time. For example, the last Handsome Den, the person that was taking care of them left New Haven and took them. So they got a new Handsome Den that it's a very small puppy that is going around university right now. So sometimes they do die, but not every time. Yes.
Okay, and I have a question for both Giovanna and Carol. I remember Carol was you were kind of preparing the material, right? You and Marilia, and I want to know how it was with Giovanna's. If you had a specific book, or if you have to come up with your own material to do the classes.
Yes, so I saw Carol was talking about all the topics they covered during the course. But at Emory, we use Ponto de Encontro, which is a very popular book for teaching Portuguese, especially because at Emory we teach all types of Portuguese. So we teach Portuguese from Brazil, from Portugal, Africa, And it's one of the few books that actually covers or tries to cover all this material. And then we follow the book. As I said, it's really fast. So they start with Oi, tudo bem? Meu nome é, and they finish with eu queria que você fosse. So they finish in the subjunctive. So it's super fast in one semester. And what we can do is plan extra activities during the class. Our presentations are PowerPoints, but the book is ponto de encontro.
Yes, and at our university, we used to use ponto de encontro as well for the first 2 levels, but the whole department is going through a curricular renovation in which we will not use any pre-made textbooks. So yeah, we are preparing every material for each level. So in that sense, the classes that students have this year will be different from the classes that they might have, the students from same level will have next year, because it also depends on the structure and everything. We have an ebook that the instructors use to guide themselves on the topics they will approach and also the grammar structures they will approach, but mostly it's something very dependent on the instructor. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have a question here. I think that's a question that everybody thinks about. And how did you apply for the program?
Okay. So Fulbright has many different programs to go to the US. Our program is the FLTA, so you need to be graduated in letras, either Portuguese or English, have a very good English level and experience in teaching. And I think you have to have graduated 5 years tops, and then you can apply.
And it's also open if any of your students is graduated in letras, the edital it's open. Okay. And do you want to talk a little bit more about the whole process?
Sure. I think you mean as in each step of the program?
Yes. What do you need? You have to be graduated, latest graduated, but what else? And how does the process work?
Okay, so you have to have an undergrad in letras, either Portuguese or English, as Giovanna was telling us. You also have to request 3 letters of recommendation from people that have either worked with you or there were your teachers in university or your advisors or anything else. You also have to have a TOEFL score or any English testing. I think they also take Duolingo for the first one. They also take IELTS now. And yes, as for requirements, they also request that you have your diploma, and as you go through the steps, they will ask for transcripts of the documents that you have. But there were.
They also ask for 3 letters, right? How do you want to teach Portuguese? I think it may change a little bit every year. I don't remember.
Yes, there is one that is related to teaching techniques, and this one changes every year. There is a personal statement that you have to talk about yourself, why you want to be part of this program, and any other information that you think is relevant for your participation in this program. And anything?
Some universities like Emory, they require a master's degree as well.
Okay. Sorry. People, if you have any more questions, you can ask them in the chat. We have maybe one last question, but if you have more, you can ask. Did you two travel together in the US?
No.
We wanted to. We talked about it, but it's not that cheap to travel. And I think we both traveled where it was easier. So, for example, I went to Florida with a friend. I went to Colorado to visit a friend. I went to LA with other friends. So we do it as opportunity comes. So we never had the opportunity. Maybe in the future.
We met in São Paulo before going to the US, but we haven't met while we were here. And I think a thing about the US is that before coming here, I didn't really notice how big it would be, because sometimes you look in the map and you think, oh, this is very close to one another, but then you actually check and you see how far things are. So a lot of the people that were here were very limited to the regions they were in, or to those moments that Giovanna told us about. Oh, so we have vacations, or you have spring break, or even winter break, or anything else that allows us to go farther away, because otherwise it's closer to just travel within like nearby states.
Okay, we have one more question. How many hours a day do you work or did you used to work?
I think hours a day will depend on if you're teaching and how much grading you have. It depends on the moment in the semester too, like finals. But Fulbright limits us to 20 hours a week. So that's the amount of work we gotta do. We also take 2 classes, at least at Emory, as student. So this doesn't count 20 hours of work as a TA or a professor, and some more hours to study to take the classes you wish for.
Yeah, it is the same at our university.
Okay, I don't think we have any more questions. Just to remember, Guy, our attendance list. Okay, one more question. In your opinion, do you believe that it's easy to teach Portuguese as a second language? That's a good question.
So as I told you, I only had, before going to the US, I had only taught English. And the difference for me is English, I know why everything is the way it is because I studied in college. And I know the trouble my students will have because they speak Portuguese and I understand their difficulties. While when teaching Portuguese, I didn't predict many of the difficulties they would have because I didn't have much experience. And I didn't know how to explain many of the things we do with Portuguese language because I graduated in English. But as a positive side, I knew all the vocabulary. So any question, any vocabulary they would ask, technical or not, slangs, I would know everything. So it was better in that sense. So it's just different, but it was fun. The same way.
Hello. I have been working with Portuguese as my main working career since the beginning of my graduation, and I think there are a lot of challenges of teaching your own language, as Giovanna was telling us, because it's not something you actually learn how to do. You just do it, and then you have to explain others how to do it as well. So it is definitely a challenge, but I feel very accomplished when a student that I saw learning the very first words in Portuguese is able to finally create a whole sentence and actually talk to you and interact with you, that is very rewarding for me. So I think even though it is slightly harder, because you have to actually think about, why am I doing this way and not that way? Because even, for example, something like, why are you saying você podia me ajudar, and not like você poderia me ajudar? Because then you say, oh, grammatically poderia is right, but people in Brazil and in other countries are starting to use this other tense as this and not that. So you have to actually start to systematize your own language to yourself so you can tell others. So that is also rewarding in a way, because then you start to actually understand better why is it hard or difficult for others, and how that might not be that much for some.
Okay, I think now maybe last question if people don't ask anything else, but we have a question here. Do you have any experience in your work that made you feel really grateful for accepting this job? It may be something that was an aha moment that made you realize, oh, I'm doing a good job and my work is being rewarded.
I think, as Carol said, being able to see them use language and communicate in our native language and understand more about Brazil. So when we taught about Brazil and our even Galo, and they were able to hold a conversation about it, and they are really interested about Brazil. So this made me really proud and really happy. I think those are the best moments for me.
Yes, for me, it's also very similar. And I think that in terms of work, just also seeing how some students that in a way were struggling, or that um, had more difficulty at first, and then you see them like getting better and doing so much more later, it's always rewarding. And I think in terms of just experience in general, not work related, I'm very glad that I got to eat so many different food in here, because for me, the US, and still here, the US food is burgers and fries. But then in here, you have so much different cuisines that you can experience. So there's a lot, for example, in New Haven, there's a lot of Indian cuisines, there's a lot of South Asian cuisines too. There's a lot of good Mexican food. There's a lot of different things, and even when you go to the markets, there's so many varieties of everything. For example, cheese. I don't think I've seen so much cheese in my whole life. There's like, if you want this one specific Parmesan cheese, there's like 20 types of Parmesan cheese. It's so much to choose from. So that's something I really liked being able to experience here.
Okay, thank you. Now is the last one, I promise. And it's a really good one to finish. Can you please say some words of encouragement to anyone wishing to move to another country?
Okay. So living in the US was my first experience living abroad. I've traveled abroad before, but this is my first time leaving BH, living in a different city as an adult. And in the beginning, it's really difficult being away from family, friends, and everything, all the food, all the places, but it's worth it. It makes you change and grow in different ways. The experiences are way more powerful, and the memories you create um, are always great opportunities, even if it's work or just everyday free time, everything. So, what I would say as a suggestion is add things you like to do in your daily life in the beginning, things you are familiar with, so that you get acquainted to this new country, and then after a while, you won't even notice, and then you miss. When you come back, you'll miss the other place even more.
Yeah, I think everything G said is very true, because when I was first, like in the first month, I was like, I just want to hear people speaking Portuguese. I want them to fully understand what I'm saying to them. I want to like be able to understand what they're saying to me, because there are so many things that are very simple. For example, when you go to the market and they're like, "You're all set," and I'm like, "I don't know, am I? I have no idea." But then I think you grow to start growing to like the certain coffee shop or that path to go to the work, and then you make friendships and you make your own small little habits of like what you like to do in the city, or like, where you like to go, and it starts becoming much more familiar to you and starts becoming more like a second house. And I think that for me, one thing I would say is that we're always afraid of change, but I think, and also afraid of rejection, because for me I would always be like, I'm not sure if I want to apply, because what if I don't get it, and what if this doesn't work, or what if, but those what ifs will not exist if you don't even try. So I think just also being very open-minded about everything, because I did not really have big expectations about what I was going to experience. And I think that helped me a lot to deal with whatever it was I had to experience. Because if you think it's going to be the best experience of my life, and this is going to be so good, and that is going to be awesome, but then if it isn't, you just have a lot of disappointment, and that may help make it so you don't feel as if it was worth it or something. But I think being somewhere else is always a worthy experience, because you start to think about, oh, so for example, cleanliness. I never noticed how clean Brazilians are, but I got to notice that because I live in a house with people that are not that clean. And then I start to, not that they're not clean, but we have a very, very high standard. So it's interesting. So you can understand how other people might see you as well. And I think it's always worth it to try and go somewhere else and go and experience different things. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, G. It was a pleasure to have you here. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I hope you enjoy as much as I did. And don't forget to sign your attendance list. The link is on the chat. Don't forget to keep studying. We still have 1 month to study. Don't give up now. Okay? Thank you, everybody. Bye bye. See you. It was great. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.